Bonjour mes amis et bienvenue au jeu de Canada. Je suis votre animateur, Marc Power. Now, if you're wondering why I started off speaking in French, it's because in this edition of the Games of Canada, we'll be looking at a French-speaking show for the first time, and this will also be the first two in one piece. So without further ado, let's look back at Canada's English and French-speaking versions of Lingo.
Can you guess this five-letter word beginning with the letter P?
Price. P-R-I-C-E.
That's not it, but those squares around the letters P, C, and E mean those letters are in the word and in the right position. The R and the I are not in the word at all. Try again.
Place. P-L-A-C-E.
That's right. Now guess this five-letter word beginning with the letter S.
Skirt. S-K-I-R-T.
No, it's not skirt, but the squares tell you the S and R are in the right place, and those circles, they mean the K and T are in the word, but in different positions. Try once more.
Stork. S-T-O-R-K.
That's right. Hi, I'm Mike Reagan.
And I'm Dusty Martell.
And that's how you play television's most challenging new game show, Lingo! Welcome, everyone, to Lingo, the show that tests your knowledge of five-letter words. Words you use every day like table and...
The original era of Lingo was taped in Vancouver way back in 1987 and lasted 7 months in syndication across various CBS stations and in Canada across the global networks. Admittedly, it's a stretch to call it a Canadian show, because it was actually a rare case of an American show being taped in Canada. Lingo was produced by Ralph Andrews Productions and Bernstein Hovis Productions. In an effort to attract ratings, producers made a bold choice for host and tapped Michael Reagan. If that name sounds familiar, it should. Michael is the adopted son of Jane Wyman and then United States President, the late Ronald Reagan. Michael himself already had a background in radio, but had never done a game show, and this would be his first and only attempt. To be honest, he's not bad. He's joined by co-host and announcer Dusty Martell. After much research, I can't find any info on Dusty, and it seems that no one can. So I'm guessing she was a local TV personality brought in to comply with the CanCon laws. She's an okay announcer, and an okay co-host, but her role beyond announcer is really forced. I'm sure we all know the basic idea of Lingo, and Michael and Dusty already explained it in the intro of this episode, so I won't bother to explain it again. The biggest difference here was that instead of using a point system like the GSN version and several other international versions used, this game was a race to be the first to get a Lingo. The first team to do that won $250 and the right to play the no Lingo round. There were also some perks that we would never see again on Lingo. If a team solves a word on just one guess, they won a $1,000 bonus. Mixed amongst the numbered balls are 3 prize balls. One representing $250 in traveler's checks, one representing a trip, and one representing the Lingo jackpot, which starts at $1,000 and grows by $500 every game it's not won. To win one of these prizes, the team had to draw said ball from their vat and then win the game. The losing team received a $100 consolation prize, but later on the rules were tweaked so that the team would stay on until they lost twice. But also in each vat, there are 3 red balls. Choosing one loses control of the game. The first Lingo system, it's an interesting spin, that is, versus the point system. It has its pros and cons. I find because it takes away the time limit, it gives the team time to catch up from way back. And it is possible to Lingo at virtually any moment depending on your luck, so there's a little more suspense and excitement. But at the same time, the team that wins is not necessarily the one that played the game best. They just had the better luck. And it just doesn't seem right when luck trumps skill. However they pulled it off, the winning team earns the right to play the no Lingo round for the big money. And let me just say, I do not like the no Lingo round. I think the idea of voiding Lingo is odd, and there's just too much of an element of luck. Plus, this bonus round just takes up way too much time, especially when a team gets deep into it. As you'll see once I explain it, it's theoretically possible for a team to miss all 5 words and still win. While in the same respect, a team that solves every word on their first guess can still lose. So once again, dumb luck can trump skill, and that's a major flaw. In this round, the team attempts to solve up to 5 5-letter words with 2 letters revealed for free at the beginning, in as few guesses as possible. Each attempt at the word means 1 draw, or if the team fails to solve the word, they must draw 6 times. The team starts with 16 numbers marked on their card, arranged in such a way that it takes as few as 2 draws to Lingo, except the center number, which would be an automatic loss if drawn. The team starts with $500 on their first appearance, $1,000 on their second appearance, and $2,000 on their third appearance in the bonus round. Every time the team fails to Lingo, their money is doubled. They can stop at any time and keep the money, or risk it to play on. The risk being, if they Lingo, they lose everything. To help the team, all the even numbers are in the vat, as are 3 gold balls. If a team draws a gold ball, the drawing automatically ends for that level. This was later tweaked in that there was only 1 gold ball, but it would be mixed back into the vat if it was drawn. A team could possibly win $16,000 on their first attempt at the bonus round, $32,000 on their second, and $64,000 on their third. It's a ridiculous amount of money for that era. Even if the production company was paying it in Canadian dollars, it's still way too high, and that's really what killed this era of Lingo. The producers were way too generous with the money, and it was money they didn't have. Apparently producers did very little testing and thought that the bonus round was tough enough that they would never have to pay out that kind of money. But, of course, they were wrong! Thanks, Edge. The production company essentially ran out of money. Therefore, the payouts were tweaked. The prize balls were eliminated, and instead there were now 2 jackpot balls. In order to win a jackpot, the team had to draw both the jackpot balls and win the game. Also, the way the team Lingo now determined how much they would play for in the bonus round. A vertical or horizontal Lingo would mean $16,000 at stake. A diagonal Lingo would mean they would play for $32,000, and a double Lingo would mean a shot at the $64,000 grand prize. At the same time, they dropped the limit of 3 wins before retirement. So it was like they dropped the budget, but at the same time, they increased it because they dropped the limits for returning champions. You stayed on the show until you lost. So they fixed the budget, and they made it worse. As the show went on, the financial problems became an even bigger issue. Several contestants weren't being paid, and word was a class action lawsuit was in the works. So it just seems like too much of a coincidence that Michael and Dusty left the show after 6 months. I'm not buying the story they gave that Michael left to go on a book tour for his autobiography, which coincidentally he had just written. I think it had to do with the impending lawsuit and not wanting to potentially be attached to a scandal, especially with his father still in office. With Michael out, producer Ralph Andrews stepped in to finish the final weeks of the show. Dusty's departure wasn't even acknowledged on air, and she was quietly replaced with another unknown, Margot McKenzie. Ralph's hosting was very hokey, and he was just there. It was clear he was ready to move on and do other things. He knew the show was on its dying legs. And that's pretty much the final days of Lingo. The show was on life support, broke in wallet and in spirit, and was gone only about a month after Ralph took over. Michael would continue in the radio into the 2000s, as well as several public speaking engagements, and he is still involved in politics to this day, known for his controversial views on several topics. Ralph would go on to produce Yahtzee after Lingo was canceled, and after that train wreck, he went to Europe and produced several shows there for a few years. The closest he would get to coming back to North American television was when his Dutch version of Boggle was piloted for the US, but it was never sold. He would enter politics, then wrote an editorial column in his own newspaper for a few years until his death in 2015 from Alzheimer's disease. Dusty Martell and Margot McKenzie seem to have disappeared off the face of the earth. So that was the English version of Lingo in Canada. Now let's talk about the French version.
Il a des mains magiques. Tout ce qu'il touche se transforme en or et en beaux dollars. Mesdames et messieurs, Paul Hood.
Merci. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à un autre Lingo. Alors que deux nouvelles équipes vont s'affronter aujourd'hui à la recherche de mots de 5 lettres dans une première ronde, d'où sortira gagnante une équipe qui tentera ensuite d'obtenir 1600 $ en ronde finale.
The French-speaking version was taped in Montreal for the French-speaking division of CBC, Radio Canada, and it ran for 3 years, from 1998 to 2001. The host is longtime Montreal-based radio and TV personality Paul Hood, and it looks a lot more like the GSN revival we would see after the show was cancelled. The biggest differences being the main game was played for money, with teams winning $50 for solving a word and $100 for lingo. Also, instead of red balls, this version uses black balls, but same idea. Pick one, you lose control. The possible reason for this is that each team had either a red or green ball in their VATs, depending on if they were the red or green team. They played the question mark ball in the GSN revival. They're wild. One big rule difference, though, here was getting a lingo did not relinquish control. So many times a team could get into a rhythm, and their opponents would barely even get a chance. Play continues until time runs out, with the team with the most money being declared the winners and moving on to the bonus game. The losing team got to keep whatever money they picked up along the way, however, and also received a consolation prize package that included a dictionary, thesaurus, and other reference books, all from the Micro Robert Company. The bonus game is once again the dreaded no lingo round, but it's played for smaller stakes. The team starts with only 12 numbers marked off on their cards as 16. First level is played for $100, with the money doubling in each level, clearing all 5 levels, winning the grand prize of $1,600. If the team lingos, they lose everything, except for a consolation prize of $50. To help the team, the VAT includes...
Sûr, vous le savez, Lise. Vous l'attendiez d'ailleurs. Je le sentais. La voici. La boule d'or, mesdames et messieurs. La boule d'or, oui. Oui. Non, elle n'est pas infâme, celle-là. Elle n'est pas infâme.
If the team draws the gold ball, they automatically clear that level. The ball gets mixed back in and drawn. Win or lose, if there's time after finishing the bonus round, the team gets to play sprints. Sprints are simply 5-letter words played like the main game with 1 letter revealed, and the team getting up to 5 chances to solve it. Every one the team solves being worth $100 with no penalty if they miss. So most teams who won the bonus round, combined with their main game winnings and sprint winnings, can get somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $2,500, which is not bad for a Canadian game show at that time. Losing teams can win the $500 to $700 range, which is actually not that bad a consolation prize. The problem is, in order for a team to return the next day as champions, they have to win the $1,600, and that's very tough to do. I don't understand why they had that rule. Shouldn't winning the main game be enough to return the next day, like pretty much any other show? If it was a budget issue, they could have just put a winnings limit or limit champions to, say, 5 days. Or better yet, how about just dropping returning champions altogether? But despite that, this version is fine. The set is nice and colorful. Paul Hood does a nice job as host. The theme music is clearly some sort of stock music, but it serves its purpose as a lighthearted word game. 439 episodes were shot over 3 years, and the show remained scandal-free, proving that Lingo was a solid format that works when produced properly. It's interesting how this version was canceled not long before the GSN version debuted. I wonder if it may have served as inspiration. After Lingo was canceled, Paul continued to work in TV and radio in Montreal, and still does to this day. He would return to the game show world in 2005 with the debut of Le Cercle, or The Circle in English, an adaptation of a French show, La Cible, where he served as co-host/judge with host Charles Lafortune. The show would last one season. Incidentally, an English-speaking version of that show was also later made called Pop Quiz, and it too only lasted one season. And that was the story of Lingo, north of the border. The French version was fantastic, well-produced, ran a long time, hugely popular, but the English-speaking version was poorly produced and died quick because producers did little testing and didn't account for a budget. It's the biggest mistake you can make in games and when you're producing television. Make sure you have the money to produce the damn show. Seriously. Anyway, on the next edition of Games of Canada, we're going to do another 2-in-1 and talk about pay cards and its successor, Super Pay Cards. Until then, Marc Power, à bientôt.